All right, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So, God willing, we're going to start a 2-week series. Today we're going to talk about succeeding in a world that is not your own. Succeeding in a world that is not your own. Because we don't belong to this world, but as we'll see, we're called to succeed. And God wants us to succeed. And we want to talk about what success is. And then next week, God willing, we're going to talk about integrity. Integrity, there are these basic principles in life, like boundaries, which we talk about at one point. And integrity is one of those things. It's the science of leadership, okay? So, I want to start with 2 verses, God willing, that talk about what the view is of God about your success in the world. Jesus, before he was about to be betrayed by Judas, he was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he has this long prayer called the Messianic prayer. It's in John, I think, 16, 17, 18. In the middle of it, imagine Jesus is in the garden by himself, and the 3 of the disciples are sleeping, and he's in there, and he's it's deep stuff, right? He knows he's about to be arrested and put through these trials, and he's going to be killed. He says, I have given them your word. He's talking about the disciples, right? And his people. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world. You see, Jesus is saying, I'm not asking God. It's not a goal to take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Right? So, are we of the world? No, right? Are we in the world, though? Does God want us to leave the world? No. In the 3rd epistle of John, it says, Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things, hint all things, and be in health, just as your soul prospers. Okay, what do you get from that point that I just said, from that verse? How do you understand that verse? Should I read it once more? This is by the way, distraction central right here. There's so many distractions, right? But, so, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. How do you understand that verse? Just hearing it, without any explanations. By the way, I told you I'm a really awkward person, right? So I can just be silent for 5 minutes. I'll just wait. So, what do you guys think about that verse? Should I read it a 10th time? I can. I haven't. I forgot how to read. But
yeah, read it again.
Okay, beloved. See, once you realize you have to do work, you start to pay attention, right? Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers.
أقوله بالعربي؟
In Coptic, it's no. So, fine. So the point that I was really hoping for someone here to say, but nobody said anything, it's pretty sad. But no. The point I wanted for you to get is that John, the beloved, the disciple, right? He's saying that just as your soul prospers, I want you to prosper in everything else, right? So he's making this distinction between your soul and everything else. And he's saying, what I want for your soul, I want that for everything else. So, you are not of the world. God doesn't want to take you out of the world. He wants to leave you here, not forever, but he wants to leave you here for now. And he wants you to prosper in all things, just as your soul prospers, right? All right. So, what I want to talk about next, now that we've kind of established these 2 things, right? I I want to talk about the foundation of success, and then I want to talk about how to find success, and then we'll talk about some challenges you're going to face, and then we'll be done. Okay, so the foundation of success, how to get success, and then some challenges you're going to face, just a few, okay? And this one, it's going to sound very cliche, but I'm actually going to defend the reason, okay? What is the foundation for success? The foundation for success, and I'm going to say it, you're going to be like, and then I'm going to explain it, and then you're going to wake up, all right? The foundation for success, before we get to the values, is your spiritual life. The foundation for success is your spiritual life. And this is very clear, right? You guys all know the verse that probably once you graduate and somebody gives you a card, they're going to write this verse in the card, if they're like a priest or something. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was what? A successful man, right? This is like Joseph like in prison, Joseph being beat up by his brothers, Joseph being taken away, right? This is Joseph, right? But the Lord was with him, and he was successful. In Proverbs, it says, the Lord will be your confidence. The Lord will be your confidence, and will keep your foot from being moved. Proverbs 3:26. So, where does all this success and confidence come from? How do I walk around with confidence? The Lord will be your confidence. Why is this the foundation? Why didn't I talk about, your communication skills? Why didn't I talk about, your technical skills, like the stuff you learn in college, right? Why did I talk about that stuff? There's three reasons why this is the foundation. The first one is that there's a lot of uncertainty in life. There's a lot of uncertainty in life. To achieve anything great in life, you must face uncertainty. To achieve anything great in life, you must deal with uncertainty. You guys ever heard of outsourcing? Does anybody know what outsourcing is?
Yeah.
Who knows? What is it? What's outsourcing? Yeah.
Isn't outsourcing giving jobs outside of the country?
Yeah. So what happens is somebody developed something, right? And they started doing it. But then they're like, wait, you're so smart for developing something. Let's have you develop something else and give that thing that you're doing to someone else, right? So, and if that person stops developing new things, they're going to say, wait, we're paying you a lot of money because you're a developer of things. But you stop developing things, you're just doing things now. So they're going to be like, okay, well, we don't need you anymore. We're going to find someone else who costs a lot less money, and we're going to have them do that thing that you developed, right? So the only way that people can continue to succeed and achieve is they must face the uncertainty of something new, something unknown. The only way you succeed, right, is you find a new problem and you solve it. And this applies in your spiritual life too, right? We never rest or settle in our spiritual lives, right? You're never I pray once a week, I go to church once a week, and that's it, I'm good for the rest of my life. I just keep doing this, right? You're never going to grow. So the reason why you need your spiritual life as the foundation for success, the first reason why, is because you're going to go out and face so many things that have I have no idea what's about to happen, right? I have no idea what's about to happen. I'm going to start this new job. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to try this new service. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to start this relationship. I have no idea what's going to happen, right? Who's starting a relationship knows what's going to happen. If you start dating, that's the whole point of dating, right? You don't know what's going to happen. But you start and you want to date successfully, not necessarily to get married, but you want to date successfully where you find out God's will for that relationship, right? That's successful dating. So for you to start that process, you go in and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. So if I want to be successful, I have to have a healthy spiritual life so I can deal with that uncertainty. The second reason why your faith matters, why your faith is the foundation, or why your spiritual life is the foundation, is because of faith. That's what I'm going to say. Faith puts everything into perspective. Faith puts everything into perspective. Any problem that you will face, you have to see through that problem through your faith, right? So imagine, God forbid, you guys know, you guys have heard so many stories, and let me just, probably being recorded, so I can't tell you this story, but there's many crazy stories out there of like, people getting into like really bad accidents. Like I heard a story about someone, a child who drowned, right? They just drowned. But they drowned and they saved the child after like a few minutes. But after a certain amount of time, if your brain isn't receiving enough oxygen, it starts to die, right? So this child was very young, like less than 10 years old, and the child is like at a party and drowns, and nobody sees. They take him out, he's already brain dead, or she's already brain dead. So like, that's it, it's over, like that's it. Like human body working, mind not working, right? Like the body's working, like you put a tube in, you put feeding tubes in, the body's working, right? Like not dead, but the brain is not working. No talking, no breathing on their own, no eating on their own, nothing for the rest of their lives. What, as a parent, how do you see through that problem, right? Like, forget about uncertainty, right? Like, how do you see through this problem? It's your faith that puts this challenge, this struggle, this trial into perspective. Without faith, without seeing the kingdom of God beyond these problems, you're never going to do it. Imagine you're at school, or you're hanging out with your friends, or you're at work, and someone just insults you, like so bad, right? Like just says something so bad to you, and you're like your good friend. How about that? So you're like, what? And you don't even like. You're so insulted. You can't. It's not about like you want to punch them back. You're just so hurt. How do you put these problems into perspective? Maybe your family is like a broken family, right? Like your parents just don't get along. You don't see them like ever happy. Maybe you're in a financial issue, right? Whatever it is. We have faith that puts success into perspective and puts all challenge and crisis into perspective. And we'll remember, like at the end of the creed, which we say all the time, we say we look for the resurrection of the dead and the life of the age to come. We're saying all these things, my whole life, and then Jesus did all this work, this great work for me to save me, and we look for the resurrection of the dead. No matter what I'm going through, we look for the resurrection of the dead, right? All right. The last reason is because you need wisdom in decision making. You need wisdom in decision making. So, think of yourself. Does anybody know what a steward is? A steward? What's a steward? How about this? I'll give you a little hint. What's a stewardess? What's that? Huh? Are you looking it up? You're just texting stewards or something? Yeah.
Like, woman who stands there and goes to the restaurant and asks for a table.
Yeah, so it's usually like someone who's serving, right? Or who's like using a resource to take care of something, right? Or someone who's like, usually it's on an airplane, you have like those people, like the stewardess, like walking up and down, right? What?
Flight attendant.
A flight attendant, right? But they used to be called stewardesses, right? Okay, all right. So a steward in like the full understanding is someone who is given something and they have to take care of it, right? Like remember in the Bible it's talking about a good and faithful steward, right? Like you're given something and you have to take care of it. What are the resources that we are given? Please don't mess this up, because you are spending this all the time. You are expending this. What are the resources that we are all given? Please tell me the one I'm looking for. Please tell me the one I'm looking for. Yeah.
I said time.
Oh man, that's what I was looking for. Yeah. All right. Fine. So time is a resource, right? Time is a resource. What other resources do we have? Give me there's one more that I'm looking for, by the way. Huh?
Starts with T.
T?
Talent.
Oh, talent. Yeah. Right, that's right. But talent is more like, it's like a feature of this resource. Like I'm with you. Like companies have talent as a resource, yeah. But I'm looking for a specific resource that we all have.
Church.
Right? Another one. Even more basic than that. Like before you even start going to church.
Family.
Huh?
Family.
Family what? God? Yeah, but not everyone like believes in that. What's another resource?
Friends.
Friends? Huh?
Morality.
Morality?
Principles?
That's morality.
Intelligence? How about your health? Yeah, how about the fact that you're up and about, right? That you wake up. Like, isn't that a resource? That you have energy that you can direct. Like, I have energy in my body. I can use it to pick up a table, right? I can use it to speak. I can use it to sit down. I can use it for anything, right? So you are a steward of resources. You have basic resources. God said, here's 50 years. Take them, 50 years. Here's health for that 50 years. Or for like 49 of them, right? Or 80 and 79, or whatever, right? Whatever life expectancies are on average, right? Like, God said, here's your health, and here's 80 years. Do whatever you want. You're a steward. There's many options, right? So, don't you need wisdom in making those decisions? Like, where am I going to invest the next second? Where am I going to invest, like, the next, like, whatever, calorie of energy, or whatever energy is measured in, right? It's measured in calories, or kilocalories or something, right? Where am I going to invest these resources that I have? You know, in the liturgy they say, we offer unto you what is yours. Like, it was a nice example, one of the older servants was saying, he had just had a son. This was like 10 or 15 years ago. He was saying that he had a son, and he cut up these carrots, and he gave them to him to eat. And he said it was the sweetest thing that his son took one of the carrots and offered it back to his dad, right? So, like, this is like, we offer unto you what is yours, right? Like, God says, here's health and time and money and all this stuff, and we say, okay, God, we're going to give some of that back to you. We're going to invest it in a good way. So, the reason why your spiritual life is your foundation for any sort of success in life is, one, because if you want to achieve success, you have to deal with uncertainty. If your life is certain all the time, you're probably not doing anything great. If your life is certain all the time, you're probably not doing anything great. Even in your prayer life, right? In your prayer life, there's a difference between just doing what someone told you. Oh, someone said, oh, just take the Agbeya and read it. Okay, I'll take the Agbeya and read it. And the challenge of owning those prayers, of personalizing those prayers. That's different, right? It's not easy, right? So, the second reason is because it'll put everything into perspective, and three, because you need wisdom to direct the investments that you're making with your time and health and relationships and your heart, right? All right. So, any questions so far? By the way, there used to be a clock right there, and it's not there anymore.
It's right here.
So it's cut right there. So, I used to look at it to know how far we're at. So, any questions so far? You guys with me? All right. Now, I want to talk about how to find success. The simple answer is that in order to be successful, remember this phrase. You have to find activities that support your values. This is like the most general explanation. Find activities that support your values. And we'll talk about values. Can anybody tell me what a value is? What is a value? Like what are your values? Like, you're like, what? Dude, why are you talking to me like that? What are your values? I think it's just an older group and it's like been a long week. Yes.
Things that have meaning in your life?
Things that have meaning in your life. That's the answer. Okay, that works. So it's what matters to you, like in a different word, but that's the answer. It's what matters to you as you go about life. Like, what are the things that matter to you when you just like are living every day? Can anybody give me examples of values? Like, what are your values? Can you tell me any? Yes.
There are family values that, like, having dinner together
Yeah.
every day, or praying at night every day, or maybe even watching the same show together at a certain time every day. Like,
Yeah.
something that's somewhat habitual, but you do it to keep everything together.
Yes, and but all those behaviors and activities that you just mentioned reflect a value that that family has, right? Why is the family having dinner together? Because they value family and like a healthy dynamic within that family, right? Like, so what are your values? Can anybody tell me one of your values? Like, it's not a personal question. It's a personal question, but it's not private. Like, what are your values?
Education.
Huh?
Education.
Yes, very good. Yeah, education. Actually, I know a family, the whole family is like very big on education. Like all the kids, the parents, like everybody's like studying all the time. Just achieving stuff in school, right? I know, yeah. What else? Good, that's a very good answer.
Health.
Health, like that's good, but a bit more specific. Like I'm waiting for like fitness, like right, like exercise or like fitness is like a, you know, being strength, right, or endurance, something like that. Yes. Discipline, like in what? Yeah. Like disciplining someone? No. Or having... No.
Having discipline in life.
Having discipline? And is that, like discipline is usually like a means to something, right? You usually have discipline because you want to achieve something. Maybe it's order, or maybe the value is control. Like maybe someone wants to have a lot of control in their life, right? Okay, good. All right, let me give you some examples of values. One value could be lifelong learning, right? Lifelong learning, like we're talking about education. Another value could be wealth, right? Some people, they have a value, they want to be wealthy. Respect, security, simplicity, well-being, variety, pleasure, adventure, balance, community, education, experience, fun, family, and faith, right? So the very simple answer of how to be successful is that you first have to identify what your values are. What matters to you as you go about life? You know, the problem is that in this world, that it's very easy to be active but not going anywhere, right? It's very easy to be active but not going anywhere. Like you could wake up in the morning and just be going to school and like be coming back home, talking to people on the way, getting your breakfast, you know, whatever. Like sometimes I wonder in my own life, like I just wake up in the morning and it's just this routine over and over and over again. I'm like, is this, like when was the last time I asked myself, is this what am I going anywhere, or am I just kind of like doing this work thing and every once in a while I hang out with my friends and that's it, like that's my life. Is that my life? What does it say about my values? Like is that aligned with my values? Are you ever going to run out of things to be active in? No, you're never going to run out, right? If you want to be in school forever, you can be. If you want to be serving in church forever, you can be. If you want to be dating forever, you can be, right? Like, whatever you want to be doing, if you want to be at the gym forever, you can be, right? Whatever you want to do, you can do it. But where is it compared to your values? The problem is we have no idea what our values are. What matters to me as I go about my life? Are there any questions about that? I kind of gave you a very, very simple answer, by the way. But it's a lot of work. Like, I remember that list of things, of values that I mentioned, of examples, was in like this exercise that I was doing with my wife because we had to we wanted to like plan for something. So they said, okay, here's a list of all these values, and we went and we're like, they said, do it apart and then come and talk to each other and see if you had the same answer. And so we did it, and he said, circle your top three. I'm like, I have so many values, like how am I gonna circle my top three? Like, I have to put faith, and I have to put like health or something, and the other ones, they're all good things. So we did it, and we come back together and we're like disagreeing on one of them, like, because it's like, what do you want the values of your family to be? But in any case, the point is like, it took some thinking. It's not like somebody said, hey, what are your values? And I just listed them. I had to think. And then it's kind of sad sometimes when I'm like, wait, like I'm not pursuing some of these things at all based on how I live my life. You couldn't tell by looking at my life what my values are. You can't tell sometimes. All right. Any questions? All right, so the first thing we said is that the foundation of success is your spiritual life, because you're going to face uncertainty, because you need to have everything into perspective, and you need wisdom in decision making. And then we said to find success, you have to perform activities that align with your values, or that support your values. And what that means is that you first have to identify your values. What matters to you in your life, and then find things that support those values. I want to make a quick distinction before we get to the last part of the talk tonight, which is the difference between values and goals. Right? The difference between values and goals. You can have so many goals. Like, you can have all these goals that start and finish. Like, you keep just having a goal and finishing it, having another goal and finishing it, right? So you could say, oh, my goal is to get an A in this class. My goal is to graduate, right? But that's not your values, right? Your values are, why are you doing that, right? And that's what I want us to think about. Because you'll never be truly successful until you know why you're doing the things you do. And it's all about just sitting by yourself and doing some work. Just takes like 2 hours, pray, sit down, write your values, and then see if what you do every day supports those values. And then see, like, maybe you thought your value was something, but you're making all these choices that are really telling you something else. All right. I wanted to talk about some challenges you're going to face, or not even general challenges, sometimes some specific challenges in trying to be successful. One is that there's a lot of unethical behavior in the world, right? What's up, guys? Like, I remember there was a few years ago, and I was working in a group where our job was to make sure that numbers were right, like whenever they were getting reported to the government. And there was, I can't explain this without telling you like some small business concepts, but like, you guys ever heard of like traders? You guys ever heard like a trader, like someone trades like stocks or something, right? So some traders, they don't trade like the things that you know about. They trade like really complicated things, right? And if anybody asks you like, what's the price of a Microsoft share, right? You just go on Google and you type MSFT and you're gonna find the price of the stock, right? But these traders trade like such complicated stuff that it's very hard to find the price of it. So what ends up happening is they end up saying what the price is by themselves. Like they have like a way to explain what they think the price is, right? But it just so happened that within the same company, there were two of those traders. And one was saying the price is one thing, and the other one was saying the price is another thing, right? And you can't, like in one company, you have two different opinions, right? You can't do that. So my boss at the time, like, found out that this was happening. And it was like a multi-million-dollar issue. It's a multi-million-dollar issue. Like, it's right in front of our faces, a multi-million-dollar issue, right? And if they fix this problem, one of those traders is like not getting a really big bonus, like not like millions of dollars. They're not going to get like at the end of the year. So he's like sitting there looking at the spreadsheet. He's like trying to think, is this thing right? Like, what's going on? Like, is this thing right? And over, checking and checking and checking. And finally, he makes this very brave decision to like call him out and say, hey, you're wrong. You messed up. But there were so many, like when he did that, he had all these people telling him that he was so wrong. Like, how could you bring this up? Your calculations are wrong. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, right? There's all these big people telling him that he's wrong. But he just stood up and he said, listen, this is my job to do the right thing, to find the right numbers. And he said that was it. And they ended up like, this trader hates me. So a lot of times when you're trying to be successful, there's a lot of like shady stuff that goes on. I was just talking to a psychologist who was telling me that like there's quotas in their clinic. There's quotas, like you have to see this many patients like within a certain day, and you have to put notes in the system and all this stuff. One of the things that the psychologists have to put into the system is the number of hours that they've spent with patients, right? Because they want to make sure you're very productive, right? So one of the psychologists, their patient came 15 minutes late, Like they just came late, and clients do that all the time. They just come late, they're defying the therapist or whatever. So they came 15 minutes late. The question is, should the psychologist put the 15 minutes into the system as like time that they spent with the client? But the client is like forcing less time on the psychologist. The psychologist is ready to work, and the client just showed up late. So this psychologist, the one who was telling me the story, was like, listen, sometimes I don't meet my quota because I'm not going to put that in the system. Like I wasn't doing any service to a patient, to a client, right? But these other psychologists did. So like look at these like little things that you're faced with on a regular basis, right? Unethical behavior, just bad stuff, right? So that's one of the challenges you're going to face. The short answer is just don't do it. No matter what happens, just don't do it. I want to tell you something that, never do the wrong thing. Never do the wrong thing. No matter what challenge you're facing, never do the wrong thing. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself regardless of what job you're going to have, right? Regardless of what position, anything. Always do the right thing. Because you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror. You need to be able to say, you know what, I lost this, I lost that, but I didn't lose myself, right? I didn't compromise who I am. Because it's my value, right? To be honest, to have integrity, right? Yes?
Is there a gray area here?
Yeah, there is a gray area. There is a gray area. But, and let me give you an example. In the same example, because it's a question that I asked in that same story. So, you know, like, in a lot of, and just for this, I wasn't planning on going into this, but it's a good point. So, sometimes in therapy, a client can, like, defy the therapist by coming late, right? They're like, listen, I'm, like, the client, they don't want to be, like, they don't want to submit to the therapist as an expert, right? They want to show that they're in control, or that they're not happy. And without, instead of saying it, because it's hard to say it to someone's face, they just show up late, or they show up like really, really late, right? Now, there are many theories in therapy that say, well, that's actually a part of the therapeutic process, right? They'll say, well, listen, like, the fact that the client is defying you is a part of the process. Like, you need to, they're going to be late, and you have to deal with the lateness and address the lateness. So, actually, the client is kind of interacting with you by being late, right? So, how do you deal with that situation? Does everybody get the problem, by the way? Does everybody get it? Or is that, like, so, how do you deal with that situation? Does anybody have any ideas? How can you deal with it and be clear in your heart? That's the question. How can you be true to yourself and deal with the situation? It's definitely a gray area. There's many theories in counseling, right? You go to one, you go to the other, one will say one thing, one will say the other. How do you deal with it? Huh?
You can tell your superior the problem. That was the first thought that came to my head, like, because, like, that's like a technical error. Like, it's not your fault. Like, you're making appointments that fulfill your quota.
Yeah.
But it's not your fault that your patients are late. You can't predict that.
Yeah.
So it should just be a problem addressed by your superior.
Yes, and I think that's the way to deal with gray areas. The first thing is check your heart, or check your conscience, right? And the second thing is deal with it directly, like, or escalate, right? Like, that's the way to deal with it directly. But if there is a gray area and you're not sure how to deal with an ethical problem, you have two things that you should be doing. First, check your conscience, and number two, deal with the issue directly, or escalate, which is one of the ways to deal with it directly, right? That's it, yeah.
Yeah, where I work, we kind of have a similar system where you have to put the minutes you spend with the patients. And actually, you have to put the actual minutes you spend with the patients, otherwise it's fraud. And then if, like, your place gets audited, you're going to have to answer for that. Where the patient's complaint saying that you don't spend much time with them, and you're spending a lot of time with them. So what you can do is you can complain to your director, and you can tell them, okay, here I am. And then you can also get paid for the time that you're not spending. You can say, I was ready to work, but the patient came late.
Yeah.
Therefore, I deserve to get paid for that.
Yeah.
So we can.
Yeah, that's addressing it directly, and I agree. Does that answer the question, Sam? So conscience and dealing with it directly. A few more quick things, only because we started really late. Sometimes too, like, I just want to talk about this directly. Like, sometimes at work, you know, you're like, there's a very big, like, drinking culture after work. Like, I don't know if who experiences this or doesn't, but like a lot of times people are like, oh, let's go to happy hour after work. Actually, I was talking to someone who just started a job a few months ago, and he was telling me like, dude, all they do after work every night is go out to drink. Now, what are your opinions about that?
They don't want to go home.
What?
They don't want to go home.
They don't want to go home?
They don't want to go home and be alone, or they don't want to go home and face reality. If they
Yeah.
go out and drink,
Yeah.
it's a good time.
Yeah.
And by the time they're drunk, they can go home and just pass out. They don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. So some people use like alcohol as like drunkenness as a coping mechanism or a way to deal with like not face their problems or whatever. Yes.
Well, their livers and wallets are shot.
What?
Their livers and wallets.
Their livers and wallets are shot. Yeah. I didn't expect anyone to say that, but that's a good answer. Like their livers is a major issue. So I'm not like I actually what I want to tell you, the simple answer is if you can participate without compromising your values and without being put under the power of the alcohol, right? Then that's okay. But you have to be really honest with yourself that you're not. There's two verses in Corinthians, which is all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful, right? All things are lawful, but I will not be put under the power of anything, right? So yesterday night, as I'm walking home from work, I'm so sad that I'm walking home from work at night, but I'm walking home from work, and I just happened to walk by a bar. It's just there's so many bars everywhere, and I'm walking by, and there's security is holding some guy, and they're taking him out of the bar, and the guy's just like wobbling everywhere, right? And like for some reason, like in between wobbles, he like gets alert and curses and goes back to the wobble, right? And I saw him like in the middle of the first wobble, right? So the security guy's taking him, and the guy's like, whatever, right? And then in 1 second, I like turn around, the security guard's like, calm down, bro, calm down, you know? And the guy just like, whatever, and then he goes slobbering. So I just like friends holding him, right? So I had like walking by, like, dude, I just hope nobody like shoots me or something. I don't know what's going on. I just need to get to my car. But so this is like someone who was put under the power of alcohol, right? Like this is someone where their ability to make clear decisions was definitely impacted, right? It was inhibited, right? Like he couldn't walk the way he normally walks. He couldn't think he couldn't act the way he normally acts, right? Like this was definitely or probably not just one drink, right? Or maybe this was probably this was not what we're aiming for, right? This was not edifying at all. So the question is, you see, it's kind of like as an adult, if I was talking to 6th graders or something, I tell them a different answer. But as an adult, God is not like black and white, right? God is everywhere, right? He's great, right? So you can't just simply answer this question by being extremely rigid. You have to see what your values are and what you want to or don't want to accomplish. All right. Let me just talk about 2 more things, and then I'm done. One is work-life balance. Work-life balance. So success is sometimes like you got to really work extremely hard, right? I was watching some video of like some guy sitting in a conference room, and he's just in a meeting, and he just passed out. Like he just fell back, and his chair fell back. He's in the middle of a meeting. He just passed out. He was just so tired, right? So, and sometimes the world takes a lot of pride in like, oh, dude, you worked like 18 hours today? Bro, that's crazy, dude. And like they order food at night, and they want to work hard, and they want to, or like you're a pharmacist and you're like working during the day, you get like 3 night jobs, and you're like doing all this crazy stuff, just being all over the place, right? The main thing I can say is sometimes you can't have, you want to have balance in your life, work-life balance, right? But sometimes you can't achieve balance in the short term. But at least try to achieve balance in the medium term. Like sometimes you need to work very hard, and then you have to like take a lot of time off to spend with your family, or you need to go on a trip and take care of your spiritual life, right? So aim for balance in the medium term. And the other thing I would say is explore work-life integration, which is different from work-life balance. Work-life balance is like these two things that you keep competing, but sometimes you can find a way to do both at the same time. The last thing I want to say is that one of the challenges you're going to face as you're being successful in the way we described is difficult people, right? You're going to deal with a lot of difficult people. People, like, there's a lot of like weird situations out there, right? People who are coming into work like trying to solve their like mommy and daddy problems, right? Or like whatever it is, right? There's people who are trying to, prove themselves to whoever by succeeding at work or by succeeding at school. Like, a lot of mean stuff can happen at school, right? Like just people cheating or just kind of excluding you from study groups or whatever, right? The simple thing I would say is always respect people. You never want to regret the way you treated someone. Always respect people and manage your emotions. Manage your emotions. I was just telling someone this like a few hours ago, actually, that even though someone might be coming to like attack us, you always have to keep your emotions in check. Like if you're angry, do not act on that anger. Like if you're angry, be aware that you're angry and make a decision to act on that when you're like clearer in your heart. Are there any questions? Was this helpful? That's good. All right. Okay.
I have a question about the last point.
Yeah.
How do you keep your emotions in check? How do you not act on your emotions at the moment? Because it's very difficult. Is it not?
Yes. So the first thing I would say is slow down. Like just slow everything down. Everything. Like you want to send an email, you want to send a text message, you want to react to a crazy kid, someone yelled at you, just slow down. Like that's the first thing. The second thing is, what happens when your emotions overtake you is that you find yourself like losing control. Like you find yourself like you yell, right? Like whenever you yell, that's like you lost control, right? There's a difference between like yelling out of like zeal because no one can hear you, right? Like you just yelled, right? Like he yelled, right? But it was said about him that like you wouldn't even hear his voice in the streets sometimes, right? At the same time, right? So it said he didn't quarrel or cry out about Jesus. And a bruised flax he wouldn't like break, right? Like imagine you guys see like you ever like walking down the street, and especially in New York, there's like a twig that fell on the ground. Somebody walking, just step on it, just like to break it, just for fun, right? Like Jesus wouldn't do that, right? He wouldn't. He just walk by it. He'd walk over it or something, right? So, but at the same time, when he was preaching to the 5,000, he was on a mountain like yelling, right? Like preaching to thousands of people. So that's because he's in complete control of his emotions. He's never like doing something because his emotions are leading him. So the second thing is, after slowing down, is to ask yourself, like, is the behavior I'm about to make or about to take, is that something that I'm choosing to do, or is that something that is happening to me? It's a very hard, but when you slow down, you can ask yourself that question, right? Like, something happened to me a few days ago, and I got really, really angry, and I was about to respond to that situation. This happened to me. And I just said, like, I am so angry right now. Like, I just can't, whatever I'm about to do, I need to not do it. Like, I just need to just wait. Just wait. So I waited a whole weekend. And then when I came back to the situation, I decided to do something very different. But it's because I just saw myself, I don't feel like I'm in control right now. I feel like my anger is in control. So I have to just wait. I have to slow this whole thing down. Like, what I'm about to do is probably not going to be constructive because it's not a choice I'm making. It's something that's happening to me because my emotions are in control. And lastly is try to identify, put words on your emotions. It's very important to be able to say, I am jealous. I am feeling insecure. It's very hard to say those things, right? But if like sometimes maybe you feel like someone walks into a room and they look better than you, or you think they look better than you, or you think they're like more successful than you, or you think they've whatever, right? You have to like know, like, hey, I'm feeling a little insecure right now. You have to say that to yourself, right? So that you say, okay, wait, if I'm feeling insecure, maybe like the way I'm perceiving this person, maybe he or she's not a mean person, you know? There's so many things like that. So, okay, glory be to God forever.